So I want to talk about legacy. And to start off, I want to introduce to you Nyla. So Nyla grew up in the plains of South Dakota. And while much of her childhood was enjoyable, she had the unfortunate experience of having an alcoholic father. She never knew when he would explode. When her dad would come home from a drinking bout in the evening, she and her mom would actually hide and have to leave the house sometimes. But you know, God used that experience because Nyla developed a real love for people. She loved to care for people. She loved helping. She loved serving. So early on, she knew that she wanted to have a profession of helping other people. She wanted to be a nurse. So at 16 years old, she graduated from high school, moved to Omaha, Nebraska, attended a Bible college that offered nursing degrees. And after 3 years, she graduated with her RN. Then she ended up marrying a farmer, settled down, had 3 kids. But you know, life wasn't easy. They experienced crop failure. They even experienced bankruptcy. And to help make ends meet, she worked her profession in a hospital, ER, nursing homes. Eventually, she became a supervisor of a new way of doing nursing back then. It was called home health care. But then tragedy struck. When she was 46 years old, she contracted a crippling neurological disease called MS, multiple sclerosis. This disease has impacts on the nervous system and causes their victims to be crippled. But she did what all good people in the medical profession does. She researched. And as she researched, she chose to, instead of treating the disease with medicine, she chose to treat it with diet. And so that led her on a journey of juicing fruits and vegetables, of cutting out dairy, and many other changes to her diet. And that journey led her to a product that greatly improved her health. She became a distributor of that product, and then she transferred her passion for helping other people when they were sick to helping keep people from getting sick. You know, Nyla ended up impacting thousands of people through her journey and through her story. She became one of the top 5% producers in the company and now has a lifestyle of generosity that most only dream. And God is using her greatly. But what is the thread that led to Nyla creating a successful legacy? I think there's a few things. One is she stayed true to her calling of helping people. She didn't bounce around from career to career. I think the statistic is that the average person changes careers, not just jobs, but changes careers 7 times in their life. She didn't start another career but one time. She went from a nurse to a distributor. And then she applied the lessons that she learned at each stage to the next stage in her life, just like what Steve talked about. You know, he had the lessons learned of taking 20 men, and then he rolled that over, built on that legacy to helping others. So she stayed true to her calling. She practices the basics over and over, and she built a legacy that impacts thousands of people today. When I think of the concept of legacy, Nyla is a good example. And legacy for me, I think about it in 3 different areas. One is your personal life. The other is your family life. And thirdly is your professional area. So the question is, how can I leave a positive legacy in all the different areas, all the different people that I touch? A verse that's been super helpful and meaningful to me, this comes from Psalm 90, is teach us to number our days that we may gain a heart of wisdom. What that speaks to is intentionality, being intentional about what we do each day and really about painting a picture for what the future looks like. What do we want the future to look like? And then identifying the gaps of where we're at today and what we want the future to look like, and then making changes to move forward that. So we're not, legacy isn't just something that happens when we die. Legacy is something that we're building each and every day that we live. So I'm going to share 2 exercises. What I call them this first exercise, I call begin with the end in mind. So I actually did this when I was 37 years old. And I'm 50 today. I'm not that my birthday is today, but I'm 50 years old this year. And maybe that's why I'm thinking more about legacy and thinking about, what is the next phase of the journey, and what does it look like as my kids are getting older. But this is an exercise that I first did when I was 37 years old. And I'm just going to share that with you. So first is to ask yourself, when people come to my funeral, what would I want them to hear said about me? Now, that might sound a little bit morbid, but it is actually very sobering. And being able to think, okay, what is it that I want people to say about me when my time comes to meet my maker? And take that and write it down. I know I had a list that filled up an entire page of the things that mattered to me, and that the things that I wanted to matter to me, even if they didn't practically at the time when I first wrote this down. Then the next, ask yourself, can they say that about me right now? If not, what needs to change? And then review and update that every year. For myself, I have a process at towards the end of December. I'll sit down, I'll take out that document that I wrote back when I was 37 years old. There's a lot of different things on that. And this was one of them, and be able to say, okay, Lord, what is it that you want me to be thinking about as it relates to the company of 5Q, as it relates to our family, as it relates to profession, as it relates to all those different areas, personal life, and what do you want this next year to look like? So just to encourage you to give some thought to that, because that drives back to intentionality, living your life with intentionality. The legacy exercise number 2 is what I call the age game. And again, this was during the same time period. I did the same exercise, and it's asking yourself again, four steps. One is, what do I want my life to look like in 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, and 30 years from now? And write it down. And then what I actually did, and I'll share with you the outcome of when I did this 14 years ago, but write down your age and the age range of your children at each increment, at 2 years, at 5 years, at 10 years. That is a super, super sobering exercise to be able to see where you're at today, and then what it's going to look like further down the road. And then again, ask the question, what needs to change for what I'm writing down to actually become a reality when I hit that age in life? And then again, review and update every year. So when I first did that, again, it was when I was 37 years old. And I'm just sharing with you, this is actually a screen capture of what I said back in January of 2007. I'm not going to walk through all that, but just doing that exercise, and it doesn't look like there's a whole lot written down, but just doing that exercise when I was 37 years old, now I'm 50. Now I'm like almost hitting that 15 years away, the 52, the second from the bottom there. I mean, it is super sobering to now be in a place where I've got kids who have graduated from high school, graduated from college, and now are getting married. It says on there possibly grandkids. We don't have any grandkids yet, but it is an exercise that especially if you have a family, if you have kids, just to think through that, and to think through, wow, what are my kids going to look like? What do I want them to look like when as they grow throughout their age? So you might be thinking, man, Chad, this is heavy. I mean, I came to a digital ministry conference, and here you're talking about tombstones. But you know what? Your work and your ministry flow out of who you are. You need to know and have thought about what it is that you value, so that your work and ministry can support that and flow out of that. If you don't set time aside to be able to think about the things that really matter, we're going to end up at the end of their life saying, Lord, what is it that I've done? And so the word I want to leave with you is the whole idea of intentionality. So if you live your life with intentionality and you lead your ministry with integrity, you will leave behind a legacy. And so I just want to encourage you with that on this first part of this talk about what it looks like to be intentional. And one of the things that I share with my kids fairly often is that you never know when you're making a memory. So as you go throughout the day, and the memories that you're making, that is what you're using to build your legacy, both your personal as well as your family and your business or your ministry or your professional life. So what I've just shared is really a framework. You could call it a legacy framework, which is paint the picture of where you want to go, identify those gaps, identify the gaps from where you are right now and where you want to go, work at closing those gaps, and then rinse and repeat. That framework really is what led us to think about the ministry, the 2021 ministry benchmarks. So last week, I mentioned it earlier, I had the opportunity to spend 3 days with 10 other Christian businessmen in a mastermind group that Kenny actually put on. I tell you, it was a fantastic time of learning from others who are serving churches and ministries and building software. And I just learned a lot of areas where I have room to improve, and some areas where we're doing well and to be encouraged by. Well, one of the things that you can do to help identify the gaps in your digital ministry is to be able to see what others are doing. And so that's one of the motivations behind us creating the first digital ministry benchmark study. And like I mentioned earlier, we've had over 100 participants with it. When you get this study, you'll be able to see we're covering things like Google Analytics for organic search, social media, donor email, all the different areas that make up a digital outreach. So you'll be able to see what is the averages for the industry and how does our ministry, how does our organization measure up to that. You can identify those gaps, and then you're able to make steps to improve so that the next year when we do the ministry benchmark, we'll be able to see as an entire industry, those gaps being closed and those averages being raised across the board. That really is our heartbeat, to be able to see that happen over a period of time. I'm going to share with you 3 critical findings that I think are critical for each one of us in our ministries to take a look at. The first is that the ministries that we interacted with, nearly all of them, their major funding is from donors. And whether it's one-time gifts or monthly giving, and yet 70% of those ministries do not have a dedicated monthly donor program. And candidly, if you have people who are connecting with your ministry so much that they're giving you resources in a one-time gift, you need to be thinking intentionally about how can we roll those into a regular monthly giving program. And we're going to be having one of the talks tomorrow. You'll be able to hear from Rachel Slininger about what a monthly donor program looks like and the practical steps of how you can start one. The second thing that jumped out to me is that when it comes to gaining new email subscribers on your list so that you can communicate with people, email has been around a long time. A lot of times people don't realize or forget about how effective it is. Just like Nyla, who is doing the basics over and over and over again, it's those basics. Email gives you the ability to proactively interact with people and draw them back into your digital sphere rather than just sitting back and waiting for them to come. So growing your email list is critically important. And 85% of ministries do not have an actual lead magnet or an offer or a creative resource to be able to draw people into their world. Instead, they have the generic things like sign up for a newsletter or sign up to be able to interact with us, but there's no intentional and creative lead magnet. So that's another area that I feel like ministries, man, if you just get a few of these basics down, it will radically improve your ability to impact people in your digital space. Thirdly, is that 92% of ministries fail Google's core web vitals. Now, this is something relatively new to Google. So in terms of what they are encouraging and pushing organizations to do as it relates to a good user experience for the end users, but also as it relates to, there's like saying, if you don't have a passing grade with your core web vitals, you're not going to be ranked as high in the search engines. So it's really important that you pay attention on your website side of things how well you are ranking with Google's Core Web Vitals. And again, we're going to have a session tomorrow. Brent Wilson is going to be sharing the why, the what, and the how about Core Web Vitals. So those are just three areas of takeaways that I had as I was looking through all the research that Josh Koshorik and our team has done on the digital benchmark study. And you're going to be hearing more about that study throughout the next 2 days. We'll be dropping other findings and other things that you can learn from and take from. And hopefully, again, our heart's desire is that next year, when we do the digital ministry survey, benchmark survey, that across the board, all the averages will be raised. You know, throughout the next area I want to talk about was exactly how do you multiply your digital legacy. Kenny and I talked about it a little bit earlier. It's something that we call the 5 multipliers of digital impact. So if you think of everything that you're doing in the digital space right now, maybe you've got a website, you've got Facebook going, you've got social media going, some email subscribers, online donations, all the different areas that you're doing to impact people, both. And when I say impact, I'm not just talking about raising funds for your ministry, which is important. I'm also talking about actually having ministry impact with the people that you're interacting with on a daily basis. So if that circle that you see on the screen right there represents your current impact, and God's put it on your heart to be able to grow that impact to be a bigger circle of impact. Well, how do you get there? How do you grow? How do you multiply that impact? And we like to think of it in 5 key areas. The first area is awareness. And you can think of those as the typical top of the funnel activities, advertising, social media, podcasting, all the other content marketing things that brings visibility to your organization. So the next one is conversion rates. So conversion rates is about those people that are coming to your site or coming in your digital sphere. How many of them are actually doing the next action step that you want them to take? Maybe that's something around sparking conversations with seekers, like cjesus.net does, or maybe the conversion rate is around people signing up for your email list, or maybe that conversion rate is around, hey, we want to impact people's marriage, so we want people to sign up for our 30-day marriage challenge. Whatever that is, you can tell how efficient your efforts are by monitoring that conversion rate. How many people are coming in, and then how many people are actually taking that next action that we want. And if you're able to improve your ask, if you're able to improve that conversion rate, that's like a lever that actually improves the overall impact of your digital ministry. The next is the average value. And whether it's the average value is tied to the dollars that donors give, or it could also be the average value, like your spiritual ROI. What is the value of just being able to impact people? I know one ministry we work with, Martin Lloyd-Jones Ministries, the way that they measure effectiveness is how many people are downloading Dr. Martin Lloyd-Jones sermons. And so their average value actually comes from, they measure that by how many people are downloading those sermons. And other folks, it's around giving. So what is the average value of the donation, the average value of the gift that a person's giving? So, and again, if you can increase that average value of a gift, you're improving your ability to multiply impact across the board. Fourthly is retention. And that's really is how well is your ministry doing at delivering what you do on mission. Sometimes it's easy to woo new donors with a promise of impact, but it's much harder to consistently demonstrate that impact, that they would want to come back and support you for years to come. And so if you're able to retain those donors and be able to connect with them on an ongoing basis, again, whether that's fundraising, donation, whether that's continually coming back to get new insights, new resources, like another ministry we serve is Got Questions, an apologetics website. And so their retention is critical because it's new. It's not just new people coming in, but it's other people coming in to find answers that they're asking about what it looks like to walk the Christian faith. And then the fifth one is about engagement. And that really ties all the things together. everything that you're doing to increase awareness, to increase conversion, the average value, retention, all of that, you're engaging with your audience. And so at the end of the day, you're able to be able to grow your impact on a multiplier level, to be able to impact the folks that you're reaching out to on a regular basis. So again, like I mentioned earlier, these 5 multipliers of impact: awareness, engagement, conversion rate, average value, and retention. I like to think of those as a lever, that if we pull this awareness lever, it's going to multiply the impact, but we also need to pull this conversion lever to make sure that the people that are coming in are actually doing the things that we want them to do, and then get them into retention, into a flow where we're interacting with them on a regular basis, connecting with them, whether that's from a donor side, whether that's from a ministry side, that it's getting all of these working together to multiply your digital impact. So we've structured the entire conference around those 5 multipliers. And so I'm really excited to be able to hear the different areas of, whether it's video, social media, A/B split testing, all those different areas touch one aspect of that multiplier in some way. Well, I want to circle back on Nyla. You know, she stayed true to her calling of helping people. She didn't bounce around from career to career. She went from a nurse to distributor. She applied the lessons that she learned at each stage to the next stage of her life. She stayed true to her calling, and she practiced the basics over and over and built a legacy that impacted thousands of people. You know, Nyla's full name is Nyla Jean Williams, and she goes by Jeannie. Well, one of the thousands of people that she has impacted is me. You see, Nyla Jean Williams, who goes by Jeannie Williams, is my mom. And she's an inspiration to me, and I hope to you, that no matter what your background is, no matter your current situation, you never know when you're making a memory, and that you can have a legacy that matters. Thanks very much.